As a first-year student in an unfamiliar city, after the second session I seriously thought about finding a place to live, because the dorm was full of not the most pleasant people, studying was impossible, and maintaining a scholarship was a matter of survival. Willingly or unwillingly, I had to go to work, but McDonald's didn't even exist back then, and I got by with rather dubious jobs as a janitor, and then as a night security guard at a local 24-hour store. Among the regulars of this nice establishment was a guy of about 40 years old. Quite smart, but lost, because more than once I kicked him out dead drunk, rowdy and screaming, until one day he decided to come sober and tell me about the local devilry. The thing was this. Previously, in the area where I studied and worked, there was a huge private sector because it was a village, which one authority decided to grab and raze to hell. Why he needed it, the guy couldn't clearly explain. He looked at me sternly and I shut up. And then a fantastic phantasmagoria about brutal bastards poured into my ears, from which I took away the following: someone voluntarily sold their houses and got out of there. The rest were intimidated as best they could. Someone was maimed, someone was even killed, but in the end, out of the entire sector of 20 to 30 yards, only 2 crazy old women remained, who could not be pierced by anything. They were about 100 years old. The locals considered them witches, well, or something like that. They sent curses on that brother, which scared him quite a bit, and then he decided to burn the witches, and that was the end of it. In short, he burned down their house, and 2 weeks later his leg turned black and swelled up, and he died writhing in hellish agony. Everything would have been fine, but when they were clearing out the fire, they found the dead but whole old ladies in the cellar, the walls of which were scratched with all sorts of crosses, circles with stars, painted in blood, which nearly made everyone faint. They urgently buried the old ladies and tore apart the basement as much as they could and filled in the rest. Time passed, everyone forgot about it, the land was built up, an anthill was made. But in place of the basement there remained a vacant lot with an abandoned construction site. Either something was burning there, or there was not enough money, and the fearless Tajik builders ran away from there on the very first day. Apparently, the guy wanted to impress or scare me with this story, but even worse things happened in my village, so I said, I don't give a damn about all this, a lie, a provocation, and not a single truth. The guy was terribly offended, but he could not persuade him to go there to take a look. Summer passed. I, already a seasoned second-year student, began to earn less with the beginning of my studies. And this guy somehow magically figured out how to catch me and offered me 1,000 rubles. I did not refuse, demanded the money in advance, asked for time off from work, and went the next day. We came to that vacant lot, found a construction site, went down into the basement. A hole was visible, as if the ground had sunk, but there was no devilry there. The savvy man had already taken out a bottle and was drinking, and I was frankly bored. Anyway, 1 in the morning, 2, 3, the man had long since passed out and was fast asleep. I spat on everything and went to explore the construction site, where I met a white cat, who purred and was generally very cute, followed me everywhere. In a fit of kindness, I wanted to feed him and went to that very store for whiskas. The cat followed me, after which I fed him and stroked him for a long time. I wanted to go back to looking for witch things, but the cat did not follow me, and I stayed with him because I was too lazy to go alone, and the cat was more interesting. The story could have ended there, if the nightmare had not begun the next day. First, I was late to the university, where I was called to the carpet to see the dean, which had never happened in my life, and they taught me responsibility and punctuality in every way. Then I got into a fight with a friend because I allegedly took his girlfriend out to clubs yesterday. I told him how I went to a vacant lot, but he didn't believe me. After that, they called me from work and threw a huge kaput, because the one with whom I had agreed on a replacement allegedly didn't show up, although I saw him myself. After that, I was kind of stunned, especially because of the salary cut. There are coincidences in life, so I decided to stay up all night playing on the computer and skip university the next day. However, at about 12 o'clock in the night, a nasty sticky chill crawled up my back, making me look back sharply into the depths of the room. Of course, there was no one there, but I pulled the curtains tightly, turned on the light, and tried to cover my back as much as possible, turning the chair with its back to the wall. Fortunately, the table was in the corner, so I just sat uncomfortably. But the nasty feeling did not go away, but began to intensify. I kept nervously glancing at the crack under the door or at the curtains, then began to be afraid of the shadow under the bed, and then I picked up my feet from the floor and froze in anticipation of something terrible. Realizing that this was turning into outright hysteria, I quickly got dressed and rushed through the dark corridor, then through the entrance and ran out onto the saving street. Fortunately, it was warm September and there were enough streetlights. There were absolutely no people, and I probably would have been happy if I had met even a group of thugs. Then I decided to find that very cat, because there was nothing to do, and from inaction one could go crazy. I went to the store, where I bought him some whiskas and went on a further search. But he was nowhere to be found. Then I decided to take a walk to the vacant lot, although my nerves were already at their limit. I found him, or rather heard a piercing meow, about 50 meters from that very place. Rushed in that direction and saw that very drunk guy. By the way, he was kind of swollen, terribly smelly, and moved strangely, as if he was really drunk or on drugs, and could not really control himself. He, holding the cat by the leg, methodically and with all his might smashed him against a piece of concrete, which is why he was covered in blood. The cat screamed shrilly. Something seemed to have come over me, my eyes went blurry. I rushed at the guy and first kicked him in the knees, knocked him down and kicked him in all parts of his body for a long time, but he only moaned incoherently and twitched. Then I came to my senses, grabbed the cat in my arms and ran to the nearest sleepless center of civilization in order to urgently find a vet somewhere. I remember what happened next. How I pounded on the doors of entrances, on windows, yelled in the street something like, "Call an ambulance quickly." At that moment, I was most afraid that the cat would die. It seemed to me that after that I would be left completely alone, and the madness that covered me in that room would haunt me all my life. I ran to the nearest hospital, where at first they refused to admit me as soon as they realized that the blood that covered my hands was not mine, but the cat's. But I screamed, spat, threatened, and in the end a surgeon uncle admitted me, examined the kitty, washed his wounds, gave him some injections, and then took him away somewhere and sent me to wash off the blood. An hour later, I got the cat back in some kind of diaper, and with him the phone number of the vet we were supposed to go to in the morning. I will not describe the details of how I nursed him back to health and how handsome he became again. In the summer, I took him home to the village, where he seems to be living happily ever after. But I never saw the man again, and no matter which of his drinking buddies I asked, their faces became completely stupid and they only mumbled incomprehensibly to me in response. Then I gave up on this business, left my job for another one, far away from this hell, and made a conclusion installation for myself. Never catch any devils there, because they themselves can find you if they so desire. And I am still grateful to the cat for leading me out of this damn wasteland. They put a stadium there now, but I still don't go there.